Good morning. I'm hot. I got it today, Richard. You know, last week we started this series called The Path, in which we said that there is an unbreakable principle in the universe that if you try to break it, it will break you. It's the principle of the path, which says your direction determines your destination. You know, we went a little further and said it really doesn't matter what you hoped would happen, for you are what you wanted to have happen. Your direction, not your intention, determines your destination. It doesn't matter how good looking you are, how smart you are, how much your mom loves you. If you get on the interstate heading north, you will eventually end up in Canada. The principle isn't rocket science. It isn't brain surgery. We all know this, that when it comes to geography. But for some reason, when we look at it in areas of our life, in relationships, in finance, morality, eating habits, exercise, and developing skills that make us more competent and complete and valuable, we often walk one way, and we hope that we end up somewhere in the other direction. You know, your direction, not your intention, not your hope, not your dreams, not your determination. This is going to determine your destination. This is the hinge on which everything that we're going to talk about today swings. We build on this in a few minutes. But before we go there, I want you to show you some things about the Bible, specifically about the book of Proverbs, which we talked a little bit about last week. Open a Bible, if you will, or if you have yours, and turn to the table of contents. And as you look at the table of contents, the first 17 books of the Old Testament are historical books. They tell the history of the people of Israel and God's preparation for the coming of his Son. The next 5 books are poetic books. They teach us the wisdom of Israel. Job answers the question, why is there so much pain in this life, and how do I deal with it? Psalms points us heavenward and teaches us how to walk with God. Proverbs, on the other hand, is aimed earthward, and it teaches us to walk with people. Ecclesiastes is a testes of the nature of life. And of course, the Songs of Songs. It's an ode to romantic love. The final 17 books of the Bible are prophetic books, and we won't be looking at those in this series. But if you would now turn to Proverbs chapter 1. And look at verse 2. Solomon, the primary author of Proverbs, tells us that Proverbs was written for obtaining wisdom and discipline, for understanding words of insight, for acquiring a disciplined and prudent life, doing what is right and just and fair. Verse 4, for giving prudence to the simple, knowledge and direction to the young. Who doesn't want that? If you think about it, who doesn't want that? God, I think, intended this book that we call Proverbs to help us. to help you and me so that we could become wise, so that we would know how to live life and to live it well. In this section, which is known as the prologue to the book of Proverbs, a word appears twice that we don't use very often, but it's a great word, because if you can master the skill it implies, your life will work much better. See if you can find the word that appears twice, though in two slightly different forms. Look at verse 3 and 4. For acquiring the discipline and prudent life, doing what is right and just and fair. In verse 4, for giving prudence to the simple, knowledge and direction to the young. Did you find the two words? The word is prudent, or its adjectival form, prudence. To be prudent means to know what to do, to exercise good judgment, or having common sense. Prudent equals knowing what to do, exercising good judgment, and having common sense. We don't use this word very much, but the book of Proverbs uses it a lot. In fact, Solomon compares and contrasts prudent people with a second kind of people, which he called simple people. Whatever you are, you don't want to be a simple person. Later in Proverbs, Solomon says, flog a mocker, and the simple will learn prudence. Rebuke a discerning man, and he will gain knowledge. Proverbs 19, verse 25. In other words, some people learn by verbal instruction. A friend points out something to them that they're doing wrong, and they learn from it. Other people, simple people, have to be whipped or beaten to learn a lesson. In another place in Proverbs, Solomon says, a fool shows his annoyance at once, but a prudent man overlooks an insult. Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 16. Simple people let their emotions get the best of them. You know, they get mad and go into a rage. They spout off and complain when things don't go their way. But prudent people, they know how to control themselves and to take things in stride. Here's another one. Look at this one. A simple man believes anything, but a prudent man gives thought to his steps. Proverbs 14, verse 15. Simple people get fooled easily. Prudent people use their brains. Can you imagine if you and I mastered prudence? Life would be a lot easier, wouldn't it? One more. The prudent sees danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 22 and verse 3. Now look at this. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. And pay the penalty. And you said, David, you just read that. But that's in Proverbs chapter 27, verse 12. It's the exact same proverb, just recorded in two different places. Why in the world do you think God did that? Why would this proverb be recorded twice? Well, I'm going to tell you. I don't have a clue. I don't know. But here's what I think. God put Proverbs in the Bible to make us smarter at living life. God put this proverb in the Bible twice because he thinks that it's doubly important that we learn its lesson. Simple people need to be flogged to learn lessons, while prudent people just need a word. So let me give you some words today about prudence. And they are: the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27, verse 12. All right, here's where the serious learning begins. If last week we learned that our path is of paramount importance, then the logical question is, how do you choose the right path? How do you figure out what path we should be on? Or in some cases, how do we figure out which path to get off of? The proverb is telling us the primary difference between the prudent and the simple is not what they see, but how they respond to what they see. Because if you notice, the prudent sees danger and takes refuge. The simple sees danger and they keep going. Both of them see danger. One responds by changing course. The other keeps going and hopes that the danger will never arrive. It's like the switch or the ostrich that buries its head in the sand. You know, if I can't see it, it can't see me. And if I ignore what I know is out there, it can't hurt me. You can see why Solomon calls people like this simple. So how do you choose the right path? The prudent make course corrections. Each year on Labor Day, there is a pier swim that's conducted in Oceanside, California. Swimmers go out and swim around the pier and back. Most swimmers will get in the water and they swim 10 or 12 strokes and then lift their head to make sure that they're heading towards the buoy. Otherwise, they'll be wasting a lot of motion. But throughout the race, there are always a lot of people swimming way off course. If you were swimming straight and saw these folks out of the corner of your eye, you'd think to yourself, they're not prudent. They're simple because they're not making course corrections as they go. It's a little more complicated than that in life, though, but part of choosing the right path is getting off of the wrong path. Saying the behavior, this habit, this relationship that I've developed, you name it, is leading me somewhere that's going to hurt. So I'm going to get off of this path and get on a better one. Unlike the prudent, the simple keep right on going. When a prudent person sees that a relationship is moving in an unhealthy direction, they do something. The simple just keep on going. When a prudent person sees trouble on their financial horizon, they do something. The simple just keep on spending. When a prudent person realizes that God is the most important person in the universe and their relationship with Him isn't growing, they do something about it. The simple keep doing whatever they were doing that took their time away from God. Just so that we're clear, the second half of this proverb says the simple keep on going and they pay the penalty. The penalty for what? For refusing to act on what they see. They pay the penalty because they see no connection between the choices of today and the experiences of tomorrow. They overlook the fact that every path, every single path has a destination. Here's the really sad part about not making course corrections. And not only does the simple person himself pay a penalty, But brethren, a lot of times the people around them, they pay a penalty as well. Their wives, their children, their co-workers, their friends. The following scenario, though, I think kind of describes how the simple react to problems. And it goes something like this. Oh, you know that's probably going to be a problem. I really ought to. And then the question, are you going to do something about it? No. I'm just probably going to keep on going. But don't you see? Yeah, I see. Shouldn't you do something about it? Yeah, I should. You're right. I should. Well, what are you going to do? Nothing. Just keep going. Well, don't you see? Yeah, I probably should stop that. I should. I'm not arguing with you. What are you going to do? Just keep going. See, the simple thinks I'm going to drive toward the wall, but when I get there, I won't hit the wall. Excuse me? Well, yeah, I'm going to keep going, and when I get there, it's just going to work out. Sometimes something will happen, or I'll think of something when I get there. Really? Yeah. Don't you think? Yeah, but I'm just going to do that. I'm just going to keep on going. The simple just keep going. You would hate to be called simple. If you're 30 years old or 50 years old or 15 years old and you see a problem in the future because of your path, you need to get off that path. If you don't, you're simple. You know, a parent notices that their son or their daughter tends to talk back and lose their temper. As they grow a little older, they do the same thing for their teacher or their coach. And when they grow up, this could be a problem. A grandparent, a concerned grandparent, I'm worried about that. Mom says, yeah, me too. But figuring out how to positively and encouragingly teach their child how to submit and take direction is too painful. So they don't do anything. They hope that by luck and, circumstances that their little hothead will grow out of this, stop losing their temper and having little hissy fits. But that child grows up to go from job to job to job because he or she can't control their mouth. So they keep getting fired. A 20-something knows that he's gaining a little weight. But hey, that's what happens in your 20s, right? Your metabolism slows down, but your appetite doesn't. And a friend says, when you're 40, this could be a problem. I know, and when they're 40, it is a problem. At 46, after the first coronary, they decide that they need to figure out something to do for exercise or to eat right. But then the damage has already been done. A couple things, we really need to get our budget in order. We need to figure out where our money is going so we can give more to God and have some left over to help others. And when we retire, we'll need some leftovers to help ourselves. But then the bling catches their eyes. And besides, budgeting is so mundane, so they drive toward the wall, hoping that something miraculous will happen just before they hit. So how do you choose the right path? Here's the key. Are you ready for this? Prudent people do something different. Prudent people know that it's not what they see that makes a difference. It's what they do that makes a course correction. How do you make a course correction? You do something. You take action. You step off of the path and you get on another one. This is always hard because we are creatures of habit, creatures of momentum You know, we naturally continue to do what we're used to doing. If we're used to losing our temper is natural to us. The momentum carries us in the same direction. So to change direction means that you always give up something. Here's the parallel to what we're saying. When you see danger, it almost always requires sacrifice. And brethren, that's why we don't do it. Because if we're going to give up something and something that we're used to doing, it requires a sacrifice. And this is where it gets ironic. When prudent people act, they often look foolish. They do things that others aren't doing. They swim against the stream. They act as if there is now a changed course before the wall ever hits them or they ever hit the wall. And when you behave prudently, you usually suffer embarrassment because nobody else is doing it. Remember when the voice crying in the wilderness about 4 to 5 years ago were saying, save, don't spend, everything, save, everything's going down the hill and we're all going to be broke. You someday breathe a sigh of relief. You know what's kind of funny about this proverb? It's the exact same story that was told to us when we were kids. Did your mama ever read you the story of the 3 little pigs? You remember the story? One builds his house out of straw. One builds his house out of sticks. And when the big bad wolf comes along, he huffs and he puffs and he blows their houses down. Solomon would call these 2 little pigs simple pigs. The 3rd little pig, he was a prudent pig. He built a house out of bricks. Why? Because he saw danger coming and he built a refuge. Brethren, in conclusion, we all know that life is going to bring us challenges, don't we? When we recover from this economic downturn that we're in right now because of the coronavirus, there will be some up years, but eventually, if life continues, there will be another downturn. And prudent people plan for it. If you're married, some type of challenge will stretch and strain your relationship at some point in time. Prudent people know that. So they don't take their marriage for granted. They work on them in the good times so that they have more strength to weather the bad times. Here are the top 5 areas of life that you and I need to monitor. Number 1 is spiritual. Number 2 is relational. Number 3 is moral. Number 4 is physical. And number 5 is financial. I think that they're also in the right order. I think that's the way that we should consider them. The most important being in the world is God. The most important thing on earth is relationships. Nobody gets to their deathbed wishing that they had more money. They might wish that they had a better body so that they could live longer. They might wish that they'd live better morally so that people would think better of them. Almost everyone on their deathbed wishes that they had more time with their family and friends. And everyone on their deathbed wants to be right with God. Not only can you monitor these things, but many people set goals in those areas every single year. You can work on most of them 3 or 4 days a week. Imagine, friends, if all of us in this room love God with all our heart, soul, and mind and strength, like the Bible says that we're supposed to, our church would be a little reflection of heaven. But you know what? It's pretty close to being that now. If we loved God enough, we'd actually spill out our influence over into the community. And I think that we're doing better and better at that. Imagine if your reputation, your morals, and what people thought of you were exactly what you'd like them to think of you. Think about that. One guy, he said that my goal in life is to become the man my dog thinks I am. Imagine if we were those men and women. Just go down this list. Imagine if we hit no more walls in any of these areas. That would be a good life, don't you think? Let's not waste another minute on a path that leads somewhere that you don't want to go. Let's take some time, brethren, this week to reflect and to redirect. To make some course corrections. It's our direction, not our intention, that will determine our destination. The prudent see danger and take refuge. They get off the wrong path and they get on the right path. They make course corrections. They don't just think about it or worry about it. They do it. Your next steps this week are the same as they were covered last week, plus one more. Come back next week, please. And next time that we're together, I'll help you to see why sometimes we have a hard time seeing what the right path really is. And this is a really important part of this series. Number 2, read from the book of Proverbs. Develop some strong Christian friends. But number 4, make some sort of course correction in your life. Which brings me to this. Today would be a good day to make a course change if you have never named the name of Christ. To confess his name, to be buried in baptism. It would also be a good time to make a change or a course in your path if you've wandered away from him. If you've not lived the life that you should, to ask for his forgiveness. To let us pray with you. If you have need of the invitation, won't you come while together we stand and sing? Softly and tenderly.